Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to the Wing of Batman here on Houselights as we explore Batman as he's been interpreted on the big screen from 1966 to today and maybe beyond. I don't know. We're not there yet. But we are entering this week talking about 1993's Batman Mask of the Phantasm, our first animated entry, and I think possibly our only one unless you want to count overblown CG, but we'll get to that later on. And we are going to be looking at Batman Mask of the Phantasm through the lens of the directors that brought it to the screen, the rushed production that got it to a wide theatrical release in time for Christmas, and all of the other things that go along with that, including a voice that was maybe a little more familiar than we thought he was when he made his first debut as the Joker. I am John Mills. I am a crime lord suffering from emphysema in my later years, and I'm joined by two other crime lords. The suspiciously affable crime lord who fixed the finances for the mob and later disappeared, Darren Moser, and of course, the mobster hitman with the suspicious smile who might come into play later, Tristan Riddell. Gentlemen, here we are with the animated feature, Batman Mask of the Phantasm. The only person here old enough to have seen it in the theater as usual is me. And we are going to get off and running here because this is an animated feature that comes in, charging in hard on the heels of Tim Burton's efforts before we get to Joel Schumacher. So I need to ask, because we always ask first time and everything like that. But Darren, as a Batman fan, was this something where when you started to get into Batman, people nudged you toward? This was a necessary viewing experience, or was this something that you later stumbled on?
No, it's strange. It is a later stumble on, although I was ripe for this. I was around 10 when the animated series was on, so I was drinking that Kool-Aid. It was really enjoyable. You know, I love the animated series. I love the, what do they call it? Black on black, like we're drawing on black paper with black crayons and it's all going to be dark and brooding. And it just, every episode I really enjoyed. So I don't know why I just did not click and you know, beg my parents to go see Mask of the Phantasm in theaters. It just did not radar. I was busy watching TNG, guys. I was busy. It was 93. I was sad. TNG was almost over. It was a sad time. But
well, let's be fair. With the age that you were at, being home on Christmas Day was a much bigger deal than it was for me at that point.
That is
so true. Me going out the night of Christmas to go see Batman Mask of the Phantasm was a much more believable sort of thing to happen. Tristan, was this an immediate necessary viewing pleasure in your Batman indoctrination, or was this something that you later stumbled on and you were like, oh wow, they did a movie?
This was definitely the latter. I was so surprised how this went over my head, because I'd come home from school and watch Batman the Animated Series, but for some reason, if it was a Two-Face episode, I would shut off the TV. I'd be like, nope, I cannot handle that dude's face. I don't care if it's blue and exaggerated and the lips are curled. Nope. I freaked the hell out whenever Two-Face was on screen. I don't know why. That was just a trigger for me. I have no idea how I missed this. And I have no recollection of when I first watched it, like when I stumbled upon it. I think it was when it came out on video years later. And I remember it. You remember the old Disney clamshells for VHS?
Oh, yes. I love that packaging. It was so good. It was so satisfying to open those clamshells. Oh,
I'm pretty sure that this came out in that kind of packaging. And I could be wrong. And I don't think we got the proper aspect ratio until it was remastered in 4K.
Yeah, the aspect ratio has always been an issue with this one. I know that I was one of a handful of people who actually saw this in the movie theater. I was barely out of high school. And can you guys guess who I went to go see it with? It was the 90s. Who did I go see it with? Joey, the immortal Joey, who I mention all the time. He had just gotten a new video camera for Christmas. So it actually snowed, which was pretty rare in the mid-Atlantic for us to get snow at that time, on Christmas Day. So like we left the theater and there was snow falling and it was actually sticking to the roads. It was like, oh man, like it was this weirdly magical Christmas for me because I was out there with one of my besties It's snowing outside. We had Chinese food for dinner back before that became like too wildly popular. We saw Batman Mask of the Phantasm. And I remember that first viewing, we went into it because we were like, yeah, okay, sure. We'll go see it. I mean, we're Batman fans. Okay. And we went in with just low expectations. We were like, it's probably gonna be like a kid's movie or something. And it was one of those things where we walked out and it was like, that was way better than it had any right to be. Like, it immediately created just an amazing effect for me and for him. Like, it's always been a touchstone for us, that magical first viewing of this movie.
And I think that happened with Warner Brothers as well, because when they read the script and when they saw some of the slides, they're like, wait, no, we can't waste this on TV. Like, this needs to be a theatrical release. And apparently, I don't think it was Deanie, I think it was Timm who said that it was like he literally had the plates to hand off to animation for the finished film. And it was all in 4:3. And they said, nope, you're not done yet. Like, this is going to be a theatrical release. And he's like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? Like,
yeah.
Like, draw in the margins.
You want me to draw on the margins? And they had 8 months to do it.
Yes.
8 months. And a shockingly small amount of money.
Yes. This is a classic case, in all honesty, of a movie where when they made the decision to turn it theatrical, they should have said, okay, we're going to delay this by a year. But just like the 1966 TV show, it's between seasons. And they're like, this is basically a marketing push. This is a big ad for the movie. And I think that it winds up being, I'll lay it at the feet of whatever Warner's execs were behind it. I would call it, I think it was Jeffrey Katzenberg. So Katzenberg syndrome, the same thing that happened to the Black Cauldron when he comes on board at Disney, is he didn't really understand how animation worked. So when he's asking for cuts and reshoots, that was the point at which the people working on the Black Cauldron were like, what? No, that's not.
Can you change the angle of this shot? Yeah. What?
How many months are you going to give me to change the angle of the shot? So I think what it was they got justifiably excited and they didn't understand that meant, we have to account for changing everything. It was classic sort of like corporate mentality of, this is great, make it more. And it's like, well, more takes more. What are you talking about? I think that the movie winds up suffering because of that. But I mean, financially, well, what I think, and Darren, I'll bounce this idea off of you. I think that it's so good, or the experience winds up catching people like myself so off guard that when it came to home release, we were there to evangelize. We were there to be like, no, you got to rent it. And we bought it and we took it out to people and we showed it to them, giving it that cult status. So I guess the question is, do you think that's inevitable for a good movie? It will always eventually find its audience. It's just a question of at what point it hits.
No, I definitely agree. Yeah, I was just looking this up because I'm like, okay, when this is obviously a key part of its story. And yeah, so you have the first season of Batman the Animated Series went from September of 92 to September of 93. This was December of 93. And then the second season with about 20 episodes picked up May the following year. So yeah, you're right in that we got to keep giving the kids some Batman or they're going to, I don't know why I'm a chain smoking executive, but
you could still smoke back then.
Okay. Oh, that's true.
It works. It works.
Yeah. But this is my question though. You're talking about Timm handing off the plates and being just about done. But this is not a 22-minute episode. This is a full feature-length movie, so I'm assuming it was some sort of multi-part extravaganza. Like they'd done that in previous episodes where they string, Heart of Steel and things like that, like part 1 and part 2. But how did that transform and evolve into this very flashback, emotional, returning to Batman Year One vibes? Like that, they obviously are trying to tell a bigger story with the movie. So when did it shift from another 22-minute dip into the well? I'm not sure on that.
It was always supposed to be a direct-to-video release. That's why they were working on it in 4:3.
So it was always going to be a movie.
It's got to be in theatrical. I mean, Tristan, let me ask you this. do you think it would have suffered had they released it theatrically in 4:3? I know that we're a little more open to different aspect ratios. You don't think it would have suffered?
No, I really don't. I think there's nothing about this that really screams it needs the expanded ratio. I think this is it's not a knock. I mean, you can tell that these are coming from people who have the discipline of 4:3. 4:3 is a beautiful ratio. We've used it for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that it was made for that. And then they just kind of added some stuff on the sides where they needed to. And that's okay. It's just, I don't think the vision would have suffered, but I do like the message that it sent, that this story, these makers, these animators, these writers, these producers are doing such good quality Batman stuff that it needs to be on the big screen. So I like it for that, but I think it would have eventually found its audience just like so many other direct-to-video Batman movies have over the decades. I mean, like, how many are we up to now? Like, they release one a couple a year now, I think. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like the DC AU and now the DAU. I can't even keep track of how many versions they have.
Yeah, the acronyms are all over the board. That's extremely true. But in terms of the scale of this, part of that is the vocal talent. And Darren, do you think that, I mean, unquestionably, all due respect to everybody else that's ever played Batman, I hear Kevin Conroy's voice. If you say Batman, that's actually the first voice that comes into my head is Kevin Conroy. He's absolutely iconic.
You are in the majority there. Like whenever
I know.
Yeah. Like whenever I read a comic book, whenever I even read a novel, or when I even am like thinking about Batman, like it's Kevin Conroy in my voice. And I'm a gigantic fan of the Arkham games. I mean, they're my forever games. Like I could play them if God said I'm removing all of the video games from the earth and you can only keep this trilogy, I'd be like, that's okay, that's cool, that's fine.
Yeah, it works out. Yeah. I the thing that I come at with is, and Tristan, I'll ask you this. Do you think that the simple fact that we got between Batman Returns and Batman Forever, a theatrical Batman that had a completely different take on his origin story, and, actually the nature of the character is a little bit different than Burton had on it. Do you think that we're looking at something that harkens back to a simpler time for comic book and comic book movie fans where we didn't care that it wasn't in continuity? Like, do you think that something like this has more trouble today? Or do you think that we've just drawn the lines differently and we understand what bucket we're in when we come to it?
I think because we're comic book fans, we're used to it. When you look at all the ages that we've gone through, all the reboots, Batman's 80 years old? And how many versions have we gone through? Because you have Batman, you have Detective Comics, you have Batman and Robin, you have Absolute Batman, you have, just think about like Spider-Man, all the Amazing Spider-Man, just Spider-Man. You just have all these different titles with all these different continuities and all these different strengths and focuses. And I feel like, the majority of people don't care. Like, they just don't care. I mean, like, there are people out there today who are like, when are Batman and Spider-Man going to be in a movie together? Like, it just, the average audience does not care. They're just going to go for the story. They don't care where it falls in the continuum. They don't need that ending scene of The Flash where we see every single version of Superman, hovering around a CGI Nick Cage or Christopher Reeve or anything like that. But I think everyone always assumes that it's going to be a problem. I think that corporate people assume that's going to be a problem, but fans don't really care. And that's not, I can't give a blanket statement like that, because for a lot of fans, it's a lot of fun to think about continuity. Like, as Star Trek fans, we try to make up excuses for why an on-screen mistake happened, or why 12 parsecs is a measurement of distance and not speed. And, things like that. They created an entire movie to explain that in Star Wars. And it's just, to answer your question, I don't think it matters, but it's fun when it does, but it's fine if it doesn't.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I accept that. I mean, it's the continuity thing has always been something where I know I've never cared. It's like, it is what it is. Like you said, especially if you grew up reading comic books, every different editor-in-chief that comes in gives a different spin on stuff. And, you can tell the different eras. But Darren, in terms of this Batman, this iteration of Batman, do you feel the influence of Burton on it because of the type of story they're telling here in a movie format? Do you feel that the identity of this lines up one-to-one with the animated series, or do you feel that there's a little bit of excessive Tim Burton influence laying over top of it?
So kind of the weight, is it weightier because
Is it in his shadow?
To a point. I think at this point, I mean, like I said, I watch the show so much. Like this is what introduced me to Batman. Same, a lot of the Fox Kids shows are what introduced me. That's how I learned about Spider-Man. That's how I learned about many things, because I didn't grow up on comics. So yeah, this movie, I will say, I mean, yes, maybe a little bit of extra weight, but it honestly feels like at this point, it is such its own thing from a whole 65 episodes of who is this Batman, this animated Batman, the Kevin Conroy voice. Like, it is so ingrained at this point. I'm not even thinking about Burton. Like, yeah, that was maybe when the die was cast to make this Batman, but we've had hours, many hours of content, tens of hours to establish this character. But I will say there is weight in the fact that they are kind of going in this flashback type movie of seeing him, oh, I need to be scarier. I'm going to developing the bat suit. Like that moment where he puts it on for the first time and Alfred is shocked is so iconic, because that says more than any goon being frightened. Right. That tells us oh, okay, he is crossing a line into becoming this. And when he's talking to his dead parents at their tombstone, pleading to have some joy in his life. There are some great moments in this movie, but I don't feel like they're fleshing out Burton's Batman. I feel like this is Timm's Batman. This is the animated Batman, and we're getting a lot more, which is really enjoyable. I think it's a great. Are there other two-parter, animated Batmans from this era that I kind of like the story better? Yeah, it's not my favorite story, but it's no slouch.
Well, speaking of, elements of Batman, we've already had on the big screen, he's had a love interest in Vicky Vale. He's had a love interest in Selena Kyle. And now we get another love interest here, voiced by the wonderful Dana Delaney as Andrea Andy Beaumont. Tristan, I know this is an animated movie. However, it would only be fair to rank Ms. Beaumont in the pantheon of Batman's love interests. Is she a top fiver, or is she a forgotten femme fatale?
I honestly think that she's kind of forgotten. She doesn't even really rank up there with me, because if you have Vale, Kyle, Talia, and even Rachel, depending on which version you go with, I just don't think she ranks up there, because it was nice to see a love interest in an animated version and have it treated so, I don't want to say professionally, but it's treated so earnestly, where this was the writers and producers trying to show a legitimate ray of hope in Bruce's life, where I liked seeing her as a vehicle to his happiness and an alternate life that he could have lived. And I feel like it's kind of like his last temptation of Christ, where he's like, okay, if I don't do this, this is the life I'm going to see. This is the life I could have. But if I actually do this, I can't have her or that life, and then it's going to be filled with pain, but I'm going to get something done. In fact, holy crap, this is his last temptation of Christ. This is Batman Last Temptation.
The Last Temptation of Bruce Wayne.
The Last Temptation of Bruce Wayne. If only we did alternate episode titles. But yeah, so that's kind of, she's a vehicle. I mean, I don't think she's iconography. And I think she's there to show an alternate life, as well as move the plot along and completely alter her body type during the reveal of who is behind the mask of the Reaper.
Oh, shush Phantasm. You. Quiet you. Please.
She loses, 20 inches on her waist when she takes off the cloak?
Cloaks can, they're not flattering. Okay, Tristan?
It's padding. It's all padding.
Exactly right. That's how she can handle those falls so well, is she's got a lot of padding.
Everybody loved working with Dana Delaney and her voice acting so much that's why she was asked to be Lois Lane in the future shows.
Well, she's a terrific actress, always has been. And nobody's ever had any but anything but positive words about working with her, to your point. Like I've never, you hear different stories or times, stuff gets put in the gossip rags. Nobody's ever said anything cross about Dana Delaney, like once. I've never encountered any story like that. So it makes perfect sense to me that the crew works with her and they're like, we got to find some other reason to hang out with you because you're just so cool. Now, Darren, do you agree with Tristan's dismissive interpretation of Andy Beaumont's impact and placement in the pantheon of Bruce Wayne's love interests?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that half her screen time is flashback, like the amount of time she's actually with Bruce in present day is just a weekend. It's like barely anything. This movie has this weird balance where you have this new character that's all of a sudden integral to Bruce's past that we've barely known. And then you also have like, oh, if we're going to have a villain, let's bring the Joker in, like the most known, like heavy hitter who apparently just chills at old amusement park, plazas. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the Joker in this, but it did kind of catch me off guard that like, oh, we're going to pull that out of the deck, like not some other mid-tier bad guy. Like this has got to be a Joker, level plot. Okay.
Honestly, I think Go Big or Go Home makes perfect sense in this storyline, specifically because Batman is at the crux. Like he's put back with the one woman he would have left it all for, who left him, which puts him in the he's not in the power position there because she left him, which just absolutely devastates him. And so it's sort of like the only place you can go with the stakes after that is to bring in the biggest bad of all. And I think that what I love most about bringing the Joker in is the fact that he lives in that old World's Fair environment, because that is the most Jokerish type of thing to be, is to be so over the top. That's
very
where I see
joke.
Very killing joke, but it's also, I consider it a throwback to a Cesar Romero sort of mentality where it's like, you know what, guys, we're talking about cartoon characters here. We're going to be pretty wacky with this. I mean, you got, flying rockets and exploding Earths and stuff like that. It's like, why not go absolutely gargantuan insane with it? And I admire that. I like that. It makes more sense than remote control penguins. I can give it that much.
We'll say I did like the early moments with Joker when like the Weezer bad guy is there. It feels like he's in a room with a loaded gun. Like they are writing Joker so well where you're like, okay, you came to Joker, you're probably not leaving here alive. Like there is no way to approach this bomb and not have it go off. And because they're talking like old chums, you're like, okay, it's going to be okay. And then he kind of insults him and you're like, oh, buddy. Oh, this is not going to go your way. Like, so they're, like I said, the writing on him, on Joker, is so good. I mean, obviously Hamill's performance is amazing, but yeah, you're just like, okay, I need the plot to move along, but the Joker, like he's going to just kill everybody who comes into his orbit. Like that's just how he is.
Go on.
My favorite Joker moment in the entire movie is when Andrea is getting sucked into the fan and Bats uses the bat cycle to break the fan and then they fall to the ground and then the camera just goes to Joker and he just goes,
yep,
and then runs away.
That's
perfect.
That's a pretty great moment. I'm also a big fan of when she goes in and Weezer is in the chair and she turns it around and there's the camera with the bomb and you hear Joker and he's like, oh, you're not Bats. Like he's like, like that's a very Joker thing to do too, where it's like, oh, damn it, I thought I was going to kill him. All right, well, you're going to die. Like I enjoy so much about this film. And, Hamill, I can honestly say when I watched the episode, I wasn't like a credits watcher, with the original series at first. When they started doing the promos for this and I saw Hamill in the studio performing Joker, and I remember sitting there smoking a cigarette and seeing that and sitting up and going, wait, that was Mark, what? Like it took everybody off guard.
This was John at 7 years old, folks.
Yes.
That's how gobsmacked he was.
I was so young that I was still smoking menthols. I didn't know any better at that point.
So, okay,
yeah.
I want to, side note here, I really want people to know about Paul Dini getting attacked.
Yes, please bring this up. Please.
So Paul Dini was mugged and brutally assaulted during the making of this movie. And he was hurt so bad he needed reconstructive surgery for his skull. And it was obviously traumatic. He didn't know if he could continue making the movie. You know, he needed time to recoup. He needed time to recover. He needed time for surgery. And he didn't want to leave his house. He could not continue. And thankfully he was able to recover, thankfully, like psychologically and physically, and get back to work. And getting back to work actually helped him. But he wrote about it and made a comic book called Dark Knight, Knight spelled with an N, a true Batman story. And it is a wonderful book that everybody should read and get.
Absolutely.
And it shows how he kind of has like he has Batman and Joker on his shoulder, kind of like the angel and a devil talking to him during his recovery of, you know, getting over this vicious attack or recovering from this vicious attack. And it's beautifully drawn, beautifully written. And it's really interesting to see it from his own perspective.
I agree with you. I'm glad you mentioned it because it's a beautiful work. And I think it's a wonderful example of somebody taking something terrible and making something beautiful out of it. Like, I think there's a life lesson in that in and of itself, that art can be produced from the most unexpected places. And thank God he survived, you know, and it's like, I think that it's a true testament to what an art form he works in. Just to take a minute, I'll lay this strictly at Disney's doorstep. The company Disney went to great lengths to portray animation and by sort of ripple effect, comics, cartoons, what have you, as a kid's medium. It's for the kids. And I think that with Mask of the Phantasm, with Dini's book that you're talking about, it really is one of those things where I think we're finally coming through that fog and realizing it's an art form as a society, not just the fans, as a society that's really, you know, it's a really expressive and beautiful art form that people should be embracing and recognizing these important stories could be told in it.
Yeah, the like you said, like the fans have always known. You know, people who love comics have always known.
Yeah.
And I remember when Family Guy, it just kind of like going off the track a little bit, when Family Guy came out, people were like, oh, because it's a cartoon, you know, kids are going to watch it and get traumatized. And it's the same kind of thing when you have adult-centered comic books. People are like, well, you shouldn't have those because kids are going to think that it's for them.
Right.
Which is, of course, nonsense.
It's bunk. But part of the Batman, especially the big screen Batman mythos, vibe, all of it, is the music. Now, the score here is from Shirley Walker, who was actually a conductor or arranger. She was either a conductor or arranger for Danny Elfman on Batman. She does the score here. And so, Darren, I'll throw this to you first. Does this work for you as a Batman score? Does it feel derivative of Elfman, or does it feel like it stands on its own 2 feet?
I mean, that opening sequence with is it Russian music that they're playing? That they're singing the Batman theme?
I thought I was watching Red October.
I totally thought I was watching Red October, but I don't. Red October aside, I need more of that. It was so evocative. I'm like, okay, it was such a buckle up, here we go moment. You're using the CGI mix shots of the pullback through Gotham. So it's like, okay, it's animated, but it's different. It's like, oh, it's a budget. Here, I'm seeing the budget literally on the screen. And the music and you're like, it's almost like there's words for this song. Like it was so powerful. And then it's just all off to the races for the entire thing. From the the moments we have the World's Fair, all the World's Fair themes were like just pitch perfect. Like you felt in that time, to the moments he's talking to his parents and the past. And it isn't relying, I mean, there's moments, but it's not relying solely on the, okay, Batman's on screen, got to throw in the da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like, no. Like we're way more subtle than that. The Joker's not always coming around the corner to his Joker xylophone theme. Great score. Like I said, they had me hooked from that opening bit. I rewound it and watched it again because I can imagine 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds sitting down and being like, oh, this is amazing.
I'm glad you called out that first cue because I do remember sitting in the theater and like it starts up and it's like, yeah, we'll see what. And like that was sort of the declaration of like, sit down. We're serious here. And it was like, oh, cool. Like I remember just everything shifting in that first 30 seconds. It's like, oh, this is a thing. Okay.
Well, and
cool.
how do you top the intro? Like the Batman, the animated series intro, it's obviously Elfman, but it is like I never skipped that intro. So now you have to one up that. How do you
people
do
are
that?
still today in 2026 messing with it, making their own versions of it, making CGI versions, cleaning it up, or making alternate versions. It is impacted our generation so hard that we cannot shake it.
Yeah. Well, as a fun side note, because his name comes up an awful lot for us, but Hans Zimmer himself is actually featured. He played synthesizer on this score. So it's like that little scamp was everywhere from the beginning. And it's kind of wild because, just as a serious side note with that, Zimmer's always been so good about supporting other musicians in so many different ways and like, appearing and playing with them or helping them fix an arrangement and stuff like that. He always seems to be like a very giving sort of artist. Please, nobody shatter that illusion and tell me that he's actually like, the worst person in the world, because that's the vision of him that I have. But we're sitting here, we're singing a lot of praises of the film. I'd be curious, Tristan, where do you see points where it falls short in terms of its storytelling or its structure? What doesn't work here?
I think the structure itself. I think the structure is a little all over the place because it's not really consistent with my interest. And I think that's a common mistake just in movies in general. I think like I was just talking with you the other day about the ups and downs of the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Like it's clearly a 5-act structure and you have Act 2 and Act 4, which drags. They have really great stuff in them. I mean, it's not like they're crap acts, but they drag painfully. And I feel like this movie kind of suffers the same fate where you have a structure where things are really exciting and really interesting. And then you just feel like, okay, I'm going to tune out for a little bit. Even though this movie's only, 80 minutes long? Not even?
76 minutes.
76 minutes? It feels like at the halfway mark, it feels like you're at a 45-minute or a 50-minute halfway point. And so I feel like that might be the problem, is that it just feels uneven. Like with the flashbacks, with the investigation, with the Joker, you kind of get this back and forth, but at the same time, you're just like, wait, is this modern Andrea or is this flashback Andrea? Is the dad still alive? Is he dead? It's just, I don't know. It just felt a little all over the place to me. Darren, what do you think? Am I way off base here?
No, I had the same vibes, especially two things with the flashback. One, I also was like, oh, are we in the past now? Because they're not that different, like drawn when they're in the past versus the present. Like honestly, Alfred is the lightning rod. Does Alfred have dark hair or does he have white hair? That makes it the most clear. But when you start to add it up, I think it's easy to look at this movie and be, how many minutes have we actually spent in the present? Like with this actual story and this investigation, and because it's definitely not I'm watching the past and the present keeps cutting in. It's I'm watching the present and the past keeps cutting in. And I would have liked a little more present, especially towards the end as Batman is figuring it out. I needed more of a collision course of Batman and the Phantasm approaching each other. Like, obviously, they have the chase and all of that. But I felt like we were detectively figuring it out through the flashbacks, but that's not how Batman was figuring it out. He was figuring it out through detectiveness in the present. So it was weird. We were both learning things in the story in different ways. But
see, I think the structure works specifically because of something that you said, Tristan, because it's supposed to cast a question, at least on your first viewing, of whether the father is alive or not. I understand the criticism. I don't feel the drag. I'm completely ready and willing to admit that first viewing will always stick with me. You can't shake that sort of thing. So it's possible I look at it through rose-colored glasses, but I do This is a movie that, for comparison's sake, we just talked about 1989 Batman and 1992 Batman Returns. Batman Returns is a movie that I've sort of, this word's too heavy for it, but it makes my point. I've sort of struggled with how I feel about it through time. There were times where I loved it. There were times where I hated it. I don't love or hate it anymore, but I don't, it's still weird to me. Mask of the Phantasm is one of the Batman movies I can come to, and I know I'm going to like it no matter what. It is, in that sense, like 89's Batman, where I'm never going to regret watching this movie. I'm never going to come away with this with less of a positive opinion about it. And I think that part of it is because the structure does throw me a little off kilter. It made it feel a little more unexpected, right? I didn't feel like I could anticipate every single beat that went on. And maybe that's like, there was a time my late uncle, he was a tremendous chess player. He was like ranked when he was in college sort of chess player. And I wound up battling him to a draw one time because I just played completely without any strategy whatsoever on a timer, and it confused the hell out of him. And he was like, "Oh, it was a pretty good game." And I was like, I have no idea what I did. And I think maybe that's happening here, where it's like it is a mess, but like I'm just like, oh, okay. I didn't know what you were doing here. So that's fine. That works for me. Maybe not. I think that Hart Bochner's character, Ellis from Die Hard, plays a great voice role here as the councilman who the Joker hits with the laughing gas, and Arthur Reeves. And the scene where he is laughing hysterically is, I think, should be given to actors and actresses, whether their voice or on screen, along with Morgan Freeman's laugh from Shawshank Redemption, to say, this is a true test moment for you. Can you laugh like that and make the audience believe that you're laughing? And I think that when you combine performances like that with a difficult to predict structure, I think it's a more positive outcome, at least from my perspective. And I think you mix all of that together. Now, this movie is 76 minutes, so I think it would be a sin to sort of belabor any points here. So I think I will, as we love to say, we'll round third and we'll come in here. We're approaching the plate. Darren, I'll throw it to you first. Final thoughts and your rating for Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah, I mean, final thoughts. I definitely want to mention the first time watching it and the reveal, because that is a big reveal of like, who is the fan? Like, I did not see it coming that it was going to be her, because they do a great job of setting it up as the dad or some mysterious figure at the beginning. So that, you have to, again, look at in your mind of like, okay, I'm a child and I like Batman, the animated series, and I'm watching it. Oh my gosh, it was the love interest, with lots of padding. But yeah, it was, I think I give it definitely props for that, for pulling off a convincing reveal, because I didn't feel like I was not given enough information to judge that myself. Like, you're given that at the appropriate time to figure it out. So reveals like that are kind of trickier to land. But overall, this is an enjoyable movie, from the score to the visual style. I mean, if I have to say animated wise, like, this is my Batman, the one I grew up on. This introduced me to it. But I would always think of the show over this. I wouldn't think of like, oh, but if I really want a condensed, great 76 minutes of Batman, the animated series, I'm going to watch the movie. Like, no, I'm going to watch a couple of episodes. So not super disparagingly, I'm just going to give it a 2. It's a good movie. It tells me a lot, but I rarely watch this one. It does not have a lot of revisibility for me. It's like, once you get the hook and the reveal and that great ending. Yeah, the only part I rewatched was the opening music. But so I say that with love. Like, I'm giving it a 2. It's not a terrible movie. It's not a bad movie, but it's just not in the pantheon of Batman movies we're going through. I'm trying to balance my scale, because otherwise it's going to be a very interesting show. So two batarangs, 2 giant turbofan props destroyed by the Bat Bike.
Tristan, I'm going to go next. I'm going to give it to you last, because I have a feeling this is going to be a sandwich review thing, because I think I'm going to be the outlier here. And I'm not going to make your typical sort of excuses of like, well, you got to take nostalgia into account. No, this is a movie that consistently I have come in at 4.5 stars. There's no wavering on that. I recognize it's not a perfect movie, but I also recognize it as one of the best on-screen Batman presentations, period. I think that it's a fun excursion. It does not overstay its welcome. It would have been really easy for Warner Brothers to say, well, it's going to be theatrical. We need another 10 minutes on here too. Add something on to it. Add another car chase, something like that. It's extremely lean. It's very focused. I think Delaney is great. I think all of the voice acting is superlative in this. Hearing Abe Vigoda as a mobster again was so much fun. Stacy Keach, I mean, Hart Bachner, like it's such a tremendous voice cast. I think that it's engaging, it's fun. I love the score. So I am at a solid 4.5 for this. So we go from 2 for Darren to 4.5 for me. Bring me back down to earth, Tristan. Where are we coming in?
Giving this a 3. I'm giving this a solid 3. I think this is really enjoyable. It's good. I like it, but it does have its issues. I don't think it's a perfect film. I think it's a really good Batman film, but I think it's a great episode. I think if this was straight to DVD or straight to VHS, straight to home video, I would say, this is amazing. Why didn't they release this in theaters? And if I saw it in theaters, I'd be like, no, that was good. That was good. That's cool. That's cool. It probably should have been straight to video. Probably. So like I'm in this middle ground where the performances are great. The animation is stellar. The structure is a little weird. I think the story's almost there. Not quite. But I do love that this was a love letter to Batman Year One and Batman Year Two. It's so, you can see how much of it is pulled from those comics, from those classic comics. And I really think that in itself is enough to warrant a watch. But when you stand up against Darren was saying, the pantheon of Batman, it's just not up there. So this is a solid 3. I like it. No knock against it, but it's not something I'm going to give a 4 or 5 to.
Well, I'm glad that the rest of the audience, as they are listening to this, I know that they agree with me more than they agree with the two of you, but we springboard from Mask of the Phantasm into possibly some of the most contentious area of the Batman on-screen representations. Darren, what does that mean? Where are we going from here?
Oh, the camp's coming back in a very unique way. Next week, we're covering Joel Schumacher's 2 instances with Batman Forever from 1995 and Batman and Robin from 97. Next on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.